Salutations to all my fellow laborers doing this work in truth and sincerity, risking their lives and their freedom to do so now more so than ever. The 144,000, the scattered elect that are scattered around the four corners of the earth, that be like unto the speckled bird, the Israelite foreigners among the heathen that look like those heathen. And to the few Akwaf that are listening and learning, to you I say Shalom. This is your brother Malcolm from the branch of the Great Millstone here in Chicago, coming at you another lesson in truth. And got a couple videos that I want to profile. Esau Edom is they're on their last leg. They're being exposed worldwide, and they're coming with they're coming with false flags and pointing the fingers and blaming it on other people so they can have an excuse to go to war and fund this thing and fund that thing, and trying to deflect from what they're actually doing. And as you'll see, nothing has changed about these people from 100 years ago, from 200 years ago, to back to 500 years ago, back to when they actually ruled the Roman Empire before it collapsed and was ruled by Jacob, which I will provide a very simple evidence to prove that point. Among many, there's thousands of evidence to prove what I just said about Israelite men. This is just like the one you see on the screen on the left, being the rulers of Europe during the time of the Dark Ages and the medieval times, up until Esau Edom came back into power during the time of the Renaissance. Renaissance was a rebirth a rebirth of what? Of Esau Edom, the Roman Empire, the second leg, which is written in the scriptures, right? When Esau Edom, the cages of Ka, the so-called white man, came back into power. But right now it's just shameful spewing upon their glory. As a matter of fact, I think I'm going to call this video "Is This the Man?" All right, and let me see if I can find that. It's shameful spewing. I think that's in Habakkuk. I think that's Habakkuk. I believe that's Habakkuk 2:8 or 2:16. And it reads a little differently in the NLT, all right? And it goes to show you when it says there will be shameful spewing upon thy glory, meaning their history, and that's the problem. They were very arrogant and proud of their history, especially so-called white supremacists. They would brag about the hanging. They would brag about the land theft. They would brag about the murder and the rapes, the injustices. They would brag about them. But now, with social media, shame is upon them, because if you talk about it in school, which is a part of history, which it should be spoken about in every classroom in America, but if you speak about it now, they'll call it, critical race theory, all right? When the truth of the matter is, it's just shameful to their grandpa and their great-grandpa and their great-uncle and their great-aunts, and because even in some of the images, especially from the earlier part of the 1900s, you can actually make some of these people out and identify who their children and people are today. They don't use the technology to do that, though. But in Habakkuk 2 and in 16 in the NLT, it reads, "But soon it will be your turn to be disgraced. Come drink and be exposed. Drink from the cup of Yahweh's judgment, and all your glory will be turned to shame." Ooh, I love the way that reads. All right? I love the way that reads. But let's let this Ishmaelite, do what he does best.
And everyone today who is rallying behind Israel is going to lose. I mean, obviously they're going to lose, because rallying behind Israel just shows that you you are still stuck in this old colonialist, imperialist, racist, Western supremacist mentality that the entire global South rejects. And frankly, not just the global South. I mean, there are huge numbers of people in the West itself who reject this. The majority of people on Earth reject this. So you see, you're showing the whole global South, you're showing the whole world that you can't change, that you're the same as you ever were. I think the West, and America in particular, needs to understand that the whole world is seeing you for what you are. Your stance on Palestine makes it starkly obvious to everyone that you are not actually mature or developed enough to deserve a leadership role in world affairs, and certainly not in the affairs of the global South, certainly not in all of the countries that have been your victims all these years. I mean, there's no repentance on your part. There's no contrition. There's no moral improvement or change in you. You are exactly the same people who wiped out the Native Americans. You're the same people who regarded Africans as subhumans. You're the same people who murdered hundreds of thousands of Japanese civilians in a matter of seconds at Hiroshima and Nagasaki. You're the same.
And that right. And now they're warning, you know, that of Russia using you know, the NUKEs in Ukraine and giving a complete and total false narrative. Meanwhile, Zelensky and his you know, his constituents are buying 25 and, you know, 29 million, $60 million yachts and things of that nature with all the money that was sent there from the Americas. But you let all that stuff get out, you know. But yeah, they needed all that help, but you know, all of a sudden they got all these yachts, and it seems that he uses other people to buy them for him. There's two brothers, Boris and I forget the other brother's name, who are business partners, constituents of his. But I digress.
People who dropped napalm on civilian villages in Vietnam. I mean, on and on. Nothing changes. And nothing exposes this today more than your stance on Palestine. Nothing demonstrates that you have not changed or developed in centuries more than your shameless support for Israel. And believe me, you're alienating the whole planet by this. When you back colonialist, Zionist violence against the Palestinians, everyone sees it as emblematic of your whole attitude to the non-Western world, to the non-white world. Everyone in the global South identifies with the Palestinians.
So why claiming to be pious and wholesome and holy and Christians, you know, always talking about love when they never showed love? What was the love when you were doing the land grabs? What was the love when you were murdering off the, you know, the Gadites, my people, the native people of the Americas, as you were taking out, you know, their villages, their, you know, their whole wiping out whole tribes, moving them off their lands into reservations, you know, poisoning them, killing off their food supply. Where was all this love and Christianity at then? All right, you know, these people pretend that they're you know, the American way was a, you know, good wholesome family values and moral values, and they never had no moral values ever. Because how can you morally move someone out their home, steal their land, take their land, build upon it, and then call yourself, you know, a son of God, a daughter of God, all right? And how can those two things even go together? It makes absolutely no sense.
Everyone in the Muslim world identifies with the Palestinians. When you declare your support for total war against the Palestinians, when you declare your support for a psychopath like Netanyahu calling for basically a final solution against the Palestinians, well, everyone in the global South gets the message. You are deranged, immoral, barbaric, bloodthirsty, racist savages. And all your talk about human rights and the rule of law and all of that is all just hideous hypocrisy. You don't mean any of it, and you never did.
Damn. All right, so matter of fact, let's just set that to go again. All right, let's take that back.
And everyone
So let's just pause that. All right, take that back. And I'm gonna go to a couple of these TikTok videos, shorts, and play these. All right. So here we go.
I hate the Roman Empire. I'm so sick of hearing about them. Rome is the most most overrated empire in history. It's the most overrated thing in history. The Romans were the boys' locker room of the ancient world. They're the sports bar equivalent of an Iron Age empire. They were a completely degenerate society. They viewed themselves superior to all other people, and they believed their way of life was the only proper one. Despite what their architecture may suggest, their people were actually living in squalor. They were sick, violent alcoholics. There's nothing glorious about their civilization. Archaeological remains found tons of lice, bed bugs, fleas, whipworms, roundworms, histolytica. They were some of the unhealthiest people.
Syphilis and gonorrhea.
Certainly in the ancient world, all of their neighboring tribes, the barbarians, were far more hygienic and healthy than them. Their bathwater had amoebas, and they shared wiping sponges between each other, which just supports the life cycle.
Let me just pause it right there. On the show Spartacus was really depicted Roman life the way it was. Evidence was showed of that when they would have Negro slaves or any person of color, slaves, would stand at the bathroom and hold on these sponges and pass them back and forth to the white Romans or the aristocratic Romans, that they would share, a sponge to wipe their ass with, and it's completely and utterly disgusting. So their way of life was disgusting, yet they tried to, today glorify them like they were the standard of living in civilization today. But here's a guy telling you the truth of what we're saying all the time. And it's good that it's coming from someone who looks like him.
Of parasites. People think the Nazis are bad. The Romans are doing the same thing, except they did it for 1,000 years. They were wiping out other cultures, raising cities, enslaving people. They would slaughter, mutilate, and practice infanticide for sport. It's no wonder they were so violent and immature.
Wow.
They were all wormed out the entire time. It's not even just the empire. A lot of their people were annoying. I hate Cicero and Julius Caesar and Marcus Aurelius, and the whole Stoicism philosophy is stupid. But most people like Rome for their military, so let's talk about that. The Romans were not good soldiers. They were just conniving. They lied and cheated their way through most wars. They would sign fake treaties and come back on their word. Even if they won.
The America broke 500 treaties with so they made over 500 treaties with the so-called Native Americans, the Gadites and the Reubenites of the tribes of Israel here in America, and they broke every one of them. All right, and then they copied our style of fighting, because this old Roman way of fighting didn't work anymore, and individually they sucked as soldiers, they sucked as warriors. It was their technology in creating a metal wall and fighting from behind a metal wall, right, against far superior warriors and hunters who, individually. Hence the reason why, that there was Jake that was in the, with the gladiators in the arenas for the most part. Because even in combat sports today, Jake, for the most part, completely dominates it, all right? From wrestling to striking, from grappling arts to striking arts, Jake pretty much dominates them all.
A lot of their wars, they lost most of their battles. In fact, they lost so many battles, they invented a way to punish their own soldiers for losing. They had a professional standing army that fought in a shield wall called a legion. They were so bad at fighting individually, they needed teamwork. The reason that's so stupid is because everyone they fought were mostly just tribal people. They were hunters or farmers that would take up arms to defend their land, or if they needed to go on a raid. The Romans turned the military into an industry. It wasn't even for anything cool like pleasing the gods. They just did it to pillage, loot, conquest, and enslave people. And they still lost so many battles because they weren't actually good. The Roman military was at its best when it was primarily made up of non-Roman soldiers called the auxiliary, which you had to join and serve for 25 years if you wanted to become a Roman citizen and have actual rights and pay. The worst part is people blame the Dark Ages on the fall of the Roman Empire. The reason the European Dark Ages happened is because after they conquered everything, they didn't actually contribute to any arts or science or culture or knowledge. They just conquered and destroyed all these tribal cultures and then left them with nothing when the empire collapsed. But it's no wonder people love Rome and compare America to Rome.
So, reason why they blame the fall of Rome on the Dark Ages because the dark people that ruled in the Dark Ages were the ones who brought Rome down. See, all those Negroes that they had in their auxiliary armies and all those people of color that they had rose up and took over Rome, and they tried to hide that. So just like their, that history, well, let me just give you some examples of it, because Ben Franklin wrote that letter, a very famous letter What was it called? I'm pulling it up now. Let's turn to this. Zoom in on it. All right. He wrote the letter, and it was called Observations Concerning the Increase of Mankind. Well, you had a bunch of white people come on and make fun of him and say that he was high or whatever, and it's funny. But because he mentioned in it how the people in Europe, and as a matter of fact, I'll just read paragraph 24. As you're looking at a tapestry from the 1500s of Negroes inside of a castle, defending their castle from the wild men who lived in the forest with sticks and makeshift spears, who were the leftovers from the Roman Empire. Upon their belly that they went, like the scripture said. That was that time when that curse fell upon them. They went upon their belly, the Edomites. And if you zoom in close, you can see the black king and queen with their crowns on, all right? And these soldiers coming out, knights and archers, to defend. Here's a bigger picture of the whole thing, the castle, all right? But you can't get around what you're looking at. And this is it says the wild men and the Moors. The wild men were the white men, and the Moors were the Israelites. And this was Central Europe, 1440. All right? Central Europe, 1440. This is hardcore evidence, receipts, sort of things that they like to keep out of court. You know, try to dismiss the trial because they don't want this information presented. So for anyone to fix their lips to say anything opposite of what I'm saying, that black people were the ruling class people during the dark ages of the medieval times, well, you're just a racist liar. A colonizing, racist, hateful liar who wants to deny the truth and then call us hateful for bringing it out. All right? But in this letter, it reads in paragraph 24, the last part of the letter, it says, which leads me to add one remark, that the number of purely white people in the world is proportionally very small. All African is black or tawny. All Asia, chiefly tawny. America, exclusive of the newcomers, wholly so. Tawny is another word for swarthy, meaning what you're looking at on the screen. From a really dark chocolate person, all right, to a very light brown person, all right? That's what it means, okay? It's the reason why they replaced the word black instead of putting, tawny. All right, it says, and in Europe, the Spaniards, Italians, French, Russian, Swedes are generally what we call swarthy complexion. You're looking at swarthy. So these swarthy people who were defending this castle, all right, here, all right, these archers, these Moors, these Israelite archers, these ones back here have armor, okay, like knights. Where's his history? Where are the movies about this? All right, this was during the time of William Wallace and Braveheart. When we tell you that the Scots, the Scots were referred to as the swarthy hordes of the Scots. My man from Lethal Weapon, Mel Gibson, well, he don't look too swarthy to me. Yet he played William Wallace. So it's these liars, these colonizing liars, all right. And I hope the feelings are hurt. They just want to change the doctor of history to make it suit their false and controlled narrative. Okay. But there's shameful spewing being brought upon your glory. Matter of fact, let's go back to this now. Let's go back. And let me read some scriptures. All right. And this is Isaiah, the 14th chapter. And once again, I'm reading it in NLT. All right. It reads a little different in the King James, but the point goes across. But starting at verse 12, it says, "How are you fallen from heaven, O shining star, son of the morning? You have been thrown down to earth, and you destroyed the nations of the world." So who destroyed the nations of the world? Well, the very people that he spoke about in this video. All right. It says, "For you said to yourself, I will ascend into heaven and set my throne above God's stars." The stars of God are the Israelites. And you did ascend above the clouds. You have your planes flying up there. You have your satellites, your little space stations. But you can't go further than that because you cannot go past the Van Allen belt. So that whole moon thing, yeah. It says, "I will preside in the mountains of God, far away in the north." That would be North America. "I will climb to the highest heavens and I will be like the Most High." And they tried. All right. And that's what they're trying to do now with this whole digital thing. All right. And implant everyone. All right. That whole Revelation 13:16 thing. "Instead, you will be brought down to the place of the dead, down to his lowest death. And everyone there will stare at you and ask, can this be the one who shook the earth and made the kingdoms of the world tremble?" So in the King James, it reads, "Is this the man?" Hence the title of this video. Is this the man that did all these things? Yeah, this colonizing red piece of, All right. Let me jump up to verse 20. It says, "You will not be given a proper burial, for you have destroyed your nation and slaughtered your people. The descendants of such an evil person," and this is people, not one. All right, this isn't one person. This is a whole race of people. That's why they put person. "Will never again receive honor. Kill this man's children. Let them die because of their father's sins. They must not rise and conquer the earth and fill in the world with cities." That's how you know it's talking about a race. And so Esau Edom is never to rise up again because they are the evil seed. All right. In First Maccabees, it tells you when Alexander and his men got control over the melanated dark Grecians and became the new Europeans, the new Greeks, all right, and whitewashed it, and their whole history has been whitewashed ever since. It tells you in the Bible, in the most accurate history book ever written, in First Maccabees, the first chapter, right around the 9th verse, that evils increased and came into the earth. Evils increased and came into the earth when Esau Edom, the so-called white man, came into power. Without interruption, shameful spewing on thy glory.
Today, who is rallying behind Israel is going to lose. I mean, obviously they're going to lose. Because rallying behind Israel just shows that you are still stuck in this old colonialist, imperialist, racist, Western supremacist mentality that the entire global South rejects. And frankly, not just the global South. I mean, there are huge numbers of people in the West itself who reject this. The majority of people on Earth reject this. So you see, you're showing the whole global South, you're showing the whole world that you can't change. That you're the same as you ever were. I think the West, and America in particular, needs to understand that the whole world is seeing you for what you are. Your stance on Palestine makes it starkly obvious to everyone that you are not actually mature or developed enough to deserve a leadership role in world affairs, and certainly not in the affairs of the global South, certainly not in all of the countries that have been your victims all these years. I mean, there's no repentance on your part. There's no contrition. There's no moral improvement or change in you. You are exactly the same people who wiped out the Native Americans. You're the same people who regarded Africans as subhumans. You're the same people who murdered hundreds of thousands of Japanese civilians in a matter of seconds at Hiroshima and Nagasaki. You're the same people who dropped napalm on civilian villages in Vietnam. I mean, on and on. Nothing changes. And nothing exposes this today more than your stance on Palestine. Nothing demonstrates that you have not changed or developed in centuries more than your shameless support for Israel. And believe me, you're alienating the whole planet by this. When you back colonialist, Zionist violence against the Palestinians, everyone sees it as emblematic of your whole attitude to the non-Western world, to the non-white world. Everyone in the global south identifies with the Palestinians. Everyone in the Muslim world identifies with the Palestinians. When you declare your support for total war against the Palestinians, when you declare your support for a psychopath like Netanyahu calling for basically a final solution against the Palestinians, well, everyone in the global south gets the message. You are deranged, immoral, barbaric, bloodthirsty, racist savages. And all your talk about human rights and the rule of law and all of that is all just hideous hypocrisy. You don't mean any of it, and you never did.
Hideous hypocrisy.